Past the hills and rivers wide, where wildflowers freely bloom. In this land with skies so open, where can our children play? In cities bustling bright and loud, cars and lights that never sleep, do they find a piece of sky? Where can our children play? Bring them fields of green and gold, let their laughter echo clear. In a world so tightly wound, where can our children play? Mountains whisper ancient tales, forests sing in harmony. Will these wonders slip away? Where can our children play? Beyond the screens and towers tall, where dreams once were born and bred, do they carve new paths of joy? Where can our children play? Let's be stewards of this earth, guard the spaces wide and free. Do they find a piece of sky? Where can fields of green and gold, let their laughter echo clear. In a world so tightly wound, where can our children play? Bring them fields of green and gold, let their laughter echo clear. In a world so tightly wound, where can our children play?
Hello there, everybody. My name is Lori Gagan, and I am with Utah's Antidote. I am joined today with Laren Gertsch, and we're going to be talking about the bypass, option B, that was proposed, and there was a big city council meeting last night, so we're going to talk about that. But we're joined today, Laren is going to explain about the bypass, but before we get started on that, I just have a few things that I want to read. So the Heber Valley Corridor Project, as detailed in UDOT's recent draft environmental impact statement, known as the EIS, published in January, aims to build a new western bypass around the downtown Heber City to reduce congestion on Main Street, US 40. Both alternatives, A and B, involve constructing a freeway-style road that diverts regional traffic, including semi-trucks, westward. Option A sticks closer to the existing US 40 before veering west at 900 North, while alternative B cuts more directly west from Potter Lane through the North Fields, an agriculture area north and west of Heber. UDOT prefers B in their claims that it provides better long-term mobility, supposedly shorter travel times, and fewer failing intersections. But it does involve routing through open fields, through farmlands that affect ranchers like Laren Gertsch and others. This will amplify some of the concerns on additional environmental toxins being released in our atmosphere, hence falling into Heber City's aquifer that feeds the water to citizens' homes. I had commented last night that in our current water test report with EWG.org, environmentalworkinggroup.org, that contamination in our water, such as arsenic, chloroform, radium, dichloroacetic acid, trichloroacetic acid, and other heavy metal contaminations like arsenic, cadmium, and others, which are considered Class 1 carcinogens, meaning they may cause cancer. Glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, has one of the largest guilty verdicts, with Bayer Monsanto at $2 billion awarded to a farming couple in Central California. Obviously, Bayer is fighting the amount that this farming couple will receive. The husband and wife both have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer. Again, all of this is posted on EWG.org under Heber City's water report. But the additional chemical poisoning could potentially harm families further by breathing in the toxic air quality as well as our drinking water, even taking shower and baths, which impact the body's largest organ that absorbs these chemicals into our skin. Look at the harmful effects already happening with the residents that live near the Great Salt Lake. A friend of mine, Dr. Brian Minch, and his group of doctors are already suing the state of Utah over the chemicals found in this world-renowned lake, where thousands of people visit every year to enjoy the wildlife that lives in and around the lake. For more information on that, please visit their website, uphe.org, which stands for Utah Physicians for a Healthier Environment. Their group of doctors are fighting for the citizens of Utah as well as for the wildlife when it comes to these dangerous chemicals. With increased traffic coming from bypass option B, this could lead to higher localized air pollution from vehicle exhaust, including additional particulate matters like nitrogen oxide, carbon monoxide, and volatile organic compounds known as VOCs. These toxic chemicals can lead to cancer and other serious diseases. The gentleman who spoke last night, and I don't recall his name, that it saved his life earnings, moved here from American Fork to build his family's dream house, will be impacted with great toxicity concerns. His family is not the only one. Spending roughly $2 billion plus of taxpayers' money, actual estimates from the EIS are lower, $711 million for alternative A and $760 million for alternative B. But costs could escalate with inflation, land acquisition, or unforeseen issues, potentially approaching or exceeding $1 billion when including maintenance or other related infrastructure. Funding would come from state and federal taxes that Utah citizens pay via UDOT, meaning Utah residents foot the bill. Proponents say it saves time and boosts economic growth by improving flow traffic to Park City and beyond. But opponents point out it prioritizes regional through traffic, trucks to and from I-80, over local needs, potentially without proportional benefits for Heber area taxpayers. If costs balloon, as seen in similar UDOT projects, it could divert funds from other priorities like schools and water infrastructure that is already astronomical. Harming the aquifer and drinking water. The North Field sits atop zones for the Heber Valley Aquifer, which supplies drinking water to many homes via wells and municipal systems. Construction and operation could disrupt the soil compaction, wetland loss, or increase impervious surfaces, reducing natural filtration and increasing runoff. Vehicle traffic introduces pollution risks as mentioned above. Rainwater washes exhaust deposits, tire wear, brake dust, fluid leads off the road into ditches, soils, and eventually our groundwater. Without perfect mitigation, this could contaminate the aquifer over time, especially in a valley with high groundwater tables. The EIS discusses water resource impacts and proposes mitigation like stormwater management, but environmental groups often argue that these are not sufficient for protecting our sensitive aquifers. And with that said, I would like to bring Laren Gertsch into the conversation.
Well, let me speak first of all to myself, and then I'll address other ranchers. For me, most of the Route B goes through my property, and so they will basically put me out of business. I will no longer continue to be able to operate my ranch. I'll have to, I won't have enough remaining land. For other ranchers, it's somewhat similar, depending on where they're located. Many of the ranchers summer range in the mountains. They bring their cattle here to winter feed them and to calve them out, and they'll no longer be able to do that because they won't have the property to do it. The bigger issue for us as landowners or ranchers in the Northfield, and we discussed it, I discussed it last night, even with the irrigation company. We're standing on the road at 1200 North. UDOT has indicated that they would put an overpass over this road. They would also put one over 1600. They would also put one over 2400 in order for us to move livestock, to move equipment, and really for the general public to cross these roads. The problem with that is they have not built those costs into the estimates right now. And so each of those overpasses are probably $50 to $100 million. Second of all, the bigger issue for us is we are not, the water table in the Northfields is approximately 12 inches to 18 inches below the ground. Now, when you come into the valley, if you look out through the fields, they call it the crown jewel. The reason it's always green is because there's a lot of subsurface water. And so if we don't water across the top of the land, it still seeps through the land, and that's what keeps everything green. Basically, you water for your neighbor almost to keep the water flows down, and eventually it accumulates and goes into the Provo River, which, as they indicated last night, it's used by the Provo River water users. It then flows into the Utah Lake. It then flows down Jordan River into the Great Salt Lake. The next thing I would bring up is when CUP wanted to install pressurized sprinkler systems throughout the valley, they did it. There was an agreement reached where the Northfields would continue to flood irrigate. And the reason they would flood irrigate is to regenerate the wells within the valley. So we have asked UDOT, what's going to happen if you build a road through the middle of the Northfields and you create basically a dam because of the pressure? One side will be wet, one side will be dry. So how are you going to not harm the remaining landowners in the Northfield on the west side of the road, because it will dry up their lands? And basically behind us here is where the road would go, and they got to build ditches on both sides of the road. They would have to take out portions of the Rock Creek ditch, which is one of the main ditches in the area, and they don't have answers. We've said, you've got to provide us proof that you can keep the water table equal on both sides. We asked them how far down they were going to dig in order to put the road in, because usually you have to go down to bedrock to put the road in. They said, oh no, we're not going to go down, we're just going to build on top of the ground. We're going, still, how are you going to maintain an 18-inch water table on each side? And that's where we've suggested that they could save a lot of dollars by moving the road somewhat east of 6th West, that they could eliminate 2 of the overpasses by doing that. If they go up on the bench near 40, they can avoid significant amounts of wetlands. They can avoid many of the water problems that we're talking about. But all in all, it's the quality of the water, it's the livelihood of the people who have owned these properties for years, and basically, let me put it simply, is we've met with the Department of Agriculture. You put Route B through, you have basically terminated agriculture activities in the Northfields and in Wasatch County, in this area here.
Okay. Is that better? And so, Laren, let me ask you, have you seen UDOT's mitigation report and on anything on how they're going to keep the water clean, or they're going to be testing or anything?
No, and we've submitted even some documents and studies and asked them to respond to them. They have never responded to them. Second of all, every time we ask the question, about the only thing they tell us is, we'll figure it out. They have brought hydrologists to the meeting. We've asked them how they're going to do it, because there have been studies about the flow of the water, the way it works. It flows basically both ways, but mostly south and to the west. And yet their answer always is, we'll figure it out. They don't have a good answer, and they haven't provided anything that would substantiate their claims that they can figure it out.
And then I would think that if they don't have a mitigation process, 100% mitigation process, not 50% or 60%, that in order to preserve the water and keep it clean and safe for the citizens of Utah, wouldn't you think that it would just have to be shut down?
Yeah,
basically by bills and laws.
Yes. I mean, they had got to hear with what they call the 404 Clean Water Act. They have not demonstrated that they have done anything to comply with that. The other thing is most of this area is wetlands. I mean, whether it's designated on the map or not, it functions as a wetland. And they talk about a 2-for-1 mitigation. Well, first of all, you can't mitigate wetlands with wetlands. So they talk about, well, the imprint's 54 acres. Well, it's a lot more than 54 acres. And it's where are they going to get the land, and how are they going to put the water on the land to mitigate the wetlands? And they do not have a good answer for that as well.
Okay, so there you have it. Jill, I don't know, do you want to chime in? You're a Wasatch citizen. Is there anything that you would like to chime in over here with Laren? I'll hand you my mic.
Well, first of all, I moved here just because this is a beautiful valley, and I would say not only is it one of the most beautiful valleys, but it's one of the most beautiful valleys in the country. And I'm also afraid, besides the health risks that Lori's put in here, and Lauren's issues with, the water for the irrigation for the livestock and everything out here. I'm just afraid that once they start moving things over this way, they're just going to keep annexing more land, and pretty soon they're just going to pave this whole valley from end to end. I think they need to really just consider that we've grown enough on all the sides, and they need to stop the growth, and that will help with the traffic. And I think they could do stuff like you said with the lights, the stop lights. I think they need to test a bunch of different things out here. And basically for me though, it's going to be sad because they're just carving this place up too much. And
they want housing.
Yeah, so. They want housing, but there's millions and millions and millions of acres that direction. I didn't really think they need to do that. And can I mention that SB thing real fast?
Yeah, just real fast.
Yeah.
So nobody gets confused.
So no, real fast.
But it is important.
It is. It ties into this. There is some legislation, and I'll get the details for Lori. We'll put it on our website. But basically, there's legislation that was passed last year that allows the government, if the big plan here is to do the big loop from Salt Lake City down to Provo, up through Heber, and all the way down to Park City. And back down to 80, if they do that loop, they're going to bring in a lot of traffic here. And what they've done is they've said with the developers, if there's a bigger plan for the state, that they can come in here, let the developers pick the spots they want, and they don't have to get approval from our city council here. They don't have to get it from the county council, which means basically they can come in here with no say-so for the community. And it's some really bad bills, which will probably play into this whole issue if they want to override us at some point. So.
And what is that House bill? Is it HB?
It's HB 264, I believe. So okay. Anyway, that's going to be something we need to pay attention to.
Thank you.
I would make one more point. The way that the Route B got placed on the map, there was 23 alternatives. And basically they dismissed everything east of Heber on the notion of the vision of maintaining the Heber Main Street. And they gradually, creep this over here to 5, and then they narrowed it down to 2. But the people behind that's been in cahoots with UDOT, and they have listened to, is a couple councilmen from really 3 former, a former councilman and 2 current councilmen from Heber City. And so they've been, this group is the one who proposed this route, and for whatever reason, UDOT hitched their wagon to this route, and have never backed off from it. And a lot of times we think they're just checking the boxes and placating us and being kind to us, but they really don't care what we have to say. And so we think that's very unfortunate.
And that's where we, the people, have to stand up, not onesie twosies. We need the whole entire community. Your health is at risk, the aquifers are at risk, the ranchers that provide so much for the valley are also at risk. But Leighton, can you do me a favor? Can you flip the camera and let Lauren really quickly just explain, as we're looking downstream, at what could potentially happen if we don't all stand up?
Okay, so basically, why don't you go, if you look where the pole line is, that's where the road would come through, and it would go down. You can see where traffic's crossing down on SR 113. So it basically goes on a kind of a sweep down through there, and then across 113, and then hooks into the 13th south leg of the bypass. It would come across where the poles are here, if you kind of go to the left, and would hook in basically out on Highway 40 out there by that red barn. And so that's kind of the route of what it comes. But if you look at a topographical map, you're basically cutting the Northfields in half.
Well, there you have it. That's a wrap. And trust me, there is more to come, because we are just not going to kowtown down to Utah. We will stand, and we need to stand in numbers. We need to support the ranchers. We need to support the citizens that live here in Wasatch. But more important, we need to protect the health and welfare of every single individual in Wasatch that drinks the water. So there you have it. Thank you very much. So I'm here joined today with Mayor Heidi Franco, but before we get started on our interview, I just want to read some of the notes that I put together from the night before at the UDOT meeting. So the Heber Valley Corridor Project, as detailed in UDOT's recent draft environmental impact statement, known as the EIS, aims to build a new western bypass around downtown Heber City to reduce congestion on Main Street. Both alternatives, A and B, involve constructing a freeway-style road that diverts regional traffic, including semi-trucks, westward. Alternative A sticks closer to existing US 40 before veering west at 900 North, while Alternative B cuts more directly west from Potter Lane through the Northfields, an agricultural area north and west of Heber. UDOT prefers B in their claims that it provides better long-term mobility, shorter travel times, and fewer failing intersections. But it does involve routing through open farmlands that affect ranchers like Laren, Gertsch, and others. My concerns are on additional environmental toxins being released into our atmosphere, hence falling into Heber City's aquifer that feed water to citizens' homes. I had commented in UDOT's meeting the other night that in our current water test report with EWG.org, environmentalworkinggroup.org, contaminations such as arsenic, chloroform, radium, dichloroacetic acid, trichloroacetic acid, as well as heavy metal contaminations like arsenic, cadmium, and others are already in our water systems, as they are with most surrounding towns. With increased traffic from bypass option B, this could lead to even higher localized air pollution from vehicle exhaust, brake dust, fluid leaks, nitrogen oxides, carbon monoxide, tire wear that can all wash into these wetlands and the properties of homeowners in the path of the bypass option B, eventually leading and draining right into our groundwater. These concerns were discussed by concerned citizens the other night. These toxic chemicals can further lead to cancer and other serious disease. Spending roughly $2 billion plus of taxpayers' money, even though EIS states it is lower, $711 million for Alternative A and $760 million for B. We all know these costs will escalate with inflation, land acquisition, and unforeseen issues. Funding would come from state and federal taxes that Utah citizens pay via UDOT, meaning Utah residents foot the bill.
so harming the aquifer in the drinking water. The North Field sits atop zones for the Heber Valley Aquifer, which supplies drinking water to many homes via wells and municipal systems. Without 100% perfect mitigation, this could contaminate the aquifer over time, especially in a valley with high groundwater tables. To my knowledge, no one has seen a 100% perfect mitigation plan to protect sensitive aquifers. So Mayor Heidi Franco, thank you. I'm honored to have you here.
Thank you.
So what is your opinion on this, especially towards option B, which is what UDOT is leaning towards?
I am not in favor of Route B. I never have been. When I first heard of it back in 2020, I was really shocked, actually, to think of anyone going through the North Fields when the obvious answer, and what this valley has discussed for the 30 years that I've lived here, was to just go from the 900 north around the city down to Highway 189, a minimal round bypass going around the city, and that would be the western, the western side of Heber, and Heber would not annex past that. I mean, that was everyone's plan for decades. So it was shocking to see that line drawn through the North Fields when I knew that it would cause so much in environmental problems, environmental issues, as well as potentially destroy the culture and legacy of this valley that we all came here for. We all came here for the peace, the beauty, the natural resources, the high quality, the water, the clean air. We came here for that, and we want to keep that here. And I've campaigned on that way too many times, all right? And I'm trying to keep that promise. But it seems that with other people that are elected in Heber City over the past 6-7 years, that growth has been the number one priority. And so with all that growth, and then of course the high demand of growth up in the Jordanelle Basin, they have tried to draw that line then through the North Fields. It's really sad to me for a lot of reasons, but if you want to hit the environmental reasons first, that's huge. Right now, with the one annexation that Heber City's done in the North Fields, that's just on that southwest quadrant of River Road, it's called the Slopes, their groundwater table is so high that they're going to have to bring in feet of fill just to be able to put their utilities in the ground without having the groundwater effect there. They're going to have to pump their stormwater back uphill to get it closer to Highway 40 so that they can do the stormwater treatment. This is what happens when developers want to build in sensitive lands. All right, they're completely changing the way the land is configured, and who knows the protections. We hope the protections will be there. We have a really strong stormwater plan in the city that I pushed really hard for about 5 years ago and was able to get in. But now to think of putting a road through the North Fields, UDOT's going to be disrupting the farming operations and has admitted in the EIS that they're not going to allow the complete access that's there right now for the existing farmers' access to their land. And then,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it doesn't get much better. I'm just going to say, I've got some stories that make me sad, but let me kind of scroll down here. I've got a lot of reasons of why there are tremendous issues with Route B, and it's on my campaign website from last year. So just go to vote with the number 4, mayorfranco.com, and you're going to see a lot of reasons there. Okay, so we know that Route B is going to affect 276 acres within the north and the south fields with a 250-foot wide right-of-way. Okay, that is ginormous. I know that they want to have space in between the two roads, but that surely means there's going to be space for 3 lanes on each side in the future. And when I asked UDOT about future expansion because they started with 1 lane, and I said 1 lane's not going to be enough. And then they went to 2, and yet there's room for 3 or more. So just think about that future expansion.
Well, at that time, it's kind of like an expressway.
There you go. They're not just building a 4-lane highway that they want to build through the North Fields. There's room for much, much more. Okay, so that's huge, that acreage alone. And then they don't know, UDOT admits in the EIS, they don't know how much wetland mitigation they'll have to provide, whether it's 2-to-1 replacement for that many acres or more. It's up to the Army Corps to decide that. And if UDOT buys that land for wetlands mitigation, then will it or won't it be able to be used for farming anymore? You see what I mean? How is UDOT going to maintain it? And then how much more of the acreage will they have to take in the North Fields because they have to do this wetlands mitigation? I don't know if you remember, everyone, but UDOT's been saying for
30 years?
Since about 2020, when Route B or going through the North Fields became more viable, they kept saying, oh, it'll be cheaper to go through the North Fields. It'll be cheaper, right? It won't cost as much because there's no buildings out there. Well, guess what? That was wrong. It is 50 million more now to go through the North Fields, and it could be more. And that should give everybody pause right there, that they kept saying it'll be cheaper, and now it's not, even though Route A would mean taking out homes, buying business easements and things like that. Okay, so that's huge right there. Could we talk more about development
Yes,
in the
for
North
sure.
Fields? Okay. There's been a gentleman's agreement that I've heard since I was elected, 12 years ago, that Heber City would annex right to that bypass route. And then that would be their border, and then everything on the west side of the bypass would be county. And that was a gentleman's agreement. Everybody agreed to it. No one had any qualms. It got put into our general plan. It's drawn on maps,
Wow.
the original route. It's in our official documents. Anyway, the potential now is that with the Route B, Heber City could then annex through the North Fields. And I have heard discussions, not in public meetings, but behind the scenes, I've heard those discussions that developers want to develop in the North Fields, and that some on the city council want to just buy, park strips, large easement park strips along the side of Route B so that it can screen the development behind it. And I'm just thinking, oh, what are we doing to ourselves, right? Can we really fill up this whole valley every square inch? Is there...
Well, they're taking away all the beauty. When you
That's
drive
right.
down and you come over, the highway there and you see that, that's what we're all here for. That's the beauty. And some of it, like you were saying, on the slopes, it's already going bye-bye.
Yeah, 5-story hotel there that they want, and hundreds of units that will be mostly private, right? You'll have to,
And
pay your way in there.
even then, when families move in, that bypass isn't going to help if they want to go to Smith's, Lee's, Natural
big issue.
Grocers. They're not going to take the bypass. They're going to take the main street.
There you go. And that is I've got to look at it from a Heber City perspective, right?
Right.
That's who I am elected for. That's who I represent. So from a Heber City perspective, the EIS admits that Route B will not likely take the diesels off the road. And during peak times, they're free to go through Main Street still. And UDOT hasn't done anything to change the Main Street that they own, right? Heber City doesn't own Main Street. It's UDOT's road. So we can end up in a situation where UDOT owns Main Street as well as any potential Route B. And we're in the middle. Does that make sense?
Wow, I did not know that.
So UDOT controls the speed limit on Main Street. I have begged for years for them to lower that speed limit, and they want to keep it at 35. I've begged them, the city's begged them to do improvements on Main Street for walkability or pedestrian safety. We were able to get a few crosswalks, right, with the flashing lights, and that's all good. But that doesn't make it any less scary for the pedestrians that use them.
Right.
Okay?
I have a question. Who controls the stoplights? Like,
UDOT.
who times it?
UDOT.
Because I have to tell you, if they just started with the timing, and there were so many of us the other night that basically were saying, you know what, and a lot of people have been taking videos and they've been timing it.
Okay.
Leave 5 minutes early for work. You know, you can't tell me that they can't do that. Or 10 minutes
That's
at a
what we
cost
think, too.
of $1 billion to taxpayers. You know, let's take some of that money and there was a gentleman that made a comment that, the younger generation, they don't even want to get their driver's license. To me, that's sad. Because
It
when I
is.
was getting ready to turn 16 back in the day,
Yeah, we were
I couldn't-
ready.
Yeah, we were ready.
Yes.
But use some of that money. Let's adjust the lights, maybe provide Heber City with some local transportation. So for those people wanting to go down to Smith's or Lee's or Natural Grocers, that there's some bus transportations just like Park City does. And in
Right,
another comment
right.
too, I'm sure you heard, is look at what they did in Logan. They spent all that money with the same type of issue, doing that bypass, and their downtown still has
Yes.
the same
And there
issues.
you go. That's exactly where I'm coming from too.
Right.
Is that in the last 6 years, the other members of the city council, the majority of them, okay, Mike Johnston, Rachel Kaler, Scott Phillips, and then another previous council member, they voted for over 9,000 new units. Okay.
Wow.
Remember, Heber City only has about 6,500 units in the whole city right now. And so you can see it's more than double what they approved. Now, most of that density is from Coyote Canyon Parkway, which I still call Coyote Lane, okay?
Yeah.
It's that northward up to River Road and then over the top for the new Tiger Woods Golf Course and all that stuff up there. But you're going to have 5,000 to 6,000 units equivalent
Wow.
to our city right now, stuffed between Coyote Canyon Parkway and River Road.
And I don't think it's going to stop there.
Oh, yes, but see, now let's talk about that. Look what happened to Logan, right? Well,
Right.
look what's going to happen right here
Right.
when that goes to full build out in 20 years or however the market allows, right? Okay, I'm sorry, I got to calm myself down on this because I have been begging and begging the council for years, have those developers build enough roads for their own density and not just put it all on Highway 40.
Right.
That didn't happen. Okay, we only have 1.5 roads going north-south through all that density. And to me, that is just ludicrous. Can you imagine Heber City having one road, 1.5 roads going north and south, even though we have Main Street? We have many ways, right?
Right.
No, in these new developments, there's a few collector roads that go down to Highway 40, and that's where new lights will go in. Don't forget that. The lights, okay, we've already seen the one at Coyote Canyon and 900 North, and there's going to be 2 more going in, okay, up towards UVU and so forth. Okay, can you imagine squeezing the whole town of Heber into 4 collector roads and 1.5 roads going north and south?
With bad timing on the lights. No wonder people are getting just
I know.
frustrated.
I know. Anyway, it is a gridlock waiting to happen. Is what it is. And so now UDOT came in about 2 years ago and said, oh, we've got to rework the whole traffic model because they finally realized how much density had been granted. And I was saying, hey, I knew that was going to happen. But yet others tried to blame it on the conservation easements that we were trying to do in the North Fields. And boy, that was another sad story. I'll get to that in as quick as we can. So anyway, if you're looking at traffic alone and you're looking at Route B, then what is Heber going to be stuck with? Heber's going to be stuck turning into West Valley Bangerter on 100
Yes.
South
Terrible.
and on 1300 South. But I've got some good news on that I hope will change some things. I mean, they're literally cutting our city up and taking away connectivity on the southwest quadrant and then turning us into West Valley right before Walmart, where you can't even go north to Walmart from Daniel Road, and lots of other problems like that. But now, again, think about it from Heber City, all that growth coming in, the traffic we have now, diesels don't have to take the bypass road. All right, so UDOT's putting in a new light at 1500 South, plus we've got Airport Road,
Wow.
plus through Main Street, then to 900 North, and then to Coyote Lane, right, Coyote Canyon Parkway, and then 2 more lights after that. Can you see the gridlock?
It's going to be like downtown Chicago, which is horrible.
That's Heber City's future,
Wow.
where we will be driving. Because just like you said, people that live out by UVU or people that live up on top, at the Tiger Woods Golf Course, they're still going to come downtown to Smith's.
Right.
They're still going to go to Lee's. They're still
Well,
going to
because that's where the majority of the businesses
They're still
are.
going to go to the hospital. They're going to be driving right down
Right.
Main Street, even as walkable as the high density proposes
Well,
to be. They'll still be driving.
And the thing about it is, let's say for visitors who don't live here, if they take the bypass because there's traffic, just think of all the little mom and pop shops on Main Street, that they're going to miss. My daughter's best friend owns Mountain Meals Wellness Bar. She's right there. So you drive down there, you take the bypass, you're going to miss it. That's hurting business owners too.
And then the city wants to spend millions to draw people to Main Street Park, invest in that park to make it a draw for the local citizens as well as tourists. So it's quite ironic, let's put it that way, to say, get the diesels out of here, but there's no guarantee on that at this point,
right?
Even with Route B. And then get the regional traffic out of here. Oh, but we want you to come back downtown,
to the
right?
park.
So, like I say, to me, God, the traffic is not being resolved with Route B. So now let's go to Route A. Route A was the original route that we all thought was going to happen here for decades. We will need 3 lanes on each side of Highway 40 north of 900 North, because get this, UDOT is going to widen Highway 40 to 3 lanes on each side north of River Road anyway. So if they're going to do it anyway, right, for all the traffic that's happening up with Maida and the Jordanelle Basin, why is it they can't do it between River Road and 900 North? You see what I mean? We need that 3rd lane on both sides. We need free flow on 900 North to River Road. That's what Route A is giving us.
Right.
That's what we need now. And yet, maybe in 20 years, we'll fight that battle for Route B if it's needed at that point.
And there's got to be like a better option. Now, I was unaware, there was a gentleman that was talking about an underground tunnel that I wasn't aware.
That was one of the first options.
Which he kind of was very passionate about. Has that been totally taken off the table?
It was when UDOT came out with 13 routes, which meant even Mill Road. Okay, they wanted to have Mill Road or close to Mill Road be a bypass, as well as the original route we all thought it was going to be, and then the Northfields. They had 13 different options. One of them was the tunnel. I knew it was a bit different, but I still liked it. I really liked it. But there are other concerns there, right? It was the groundwater table.
Right.
But, like Mr. Scheid said at the hearing, if they can build a tunnel between France and England, surely they can build a tunnel here, right? And not worry about groundwater too. I was hopeful something like that could be really nice. Another thing that UDOT wanted to do was build a double-decker highway all across Main Street, which I thought was no. But look, now they're giving us a double-decker highway between Walmart and the sewer farm to Southfield Road, which is no. We did not move here to become West Valley. That's all I'm saying.
Well, it's all the pollution and all the sick people. I mean, that's one of the things that I'm passionate about. We know that, I look at the stuff that Dr. Brian Mensch is doing. He's suing the state of Utah and the Great Salt Lake. He just released his chemical report, the herbicides, the pesticides, all the deadly chemicals that are in there. Everything's drying up. I mean, I don't know if it's going to take a lawsuit to shut this down and stop it, but I don't think that they're necessarily listening to really what the people want as far as for safety when it comes to how do they route it. I do believe that something has got to be done, but listen, why don't we start with something that's cost effective? Let's get the lights in order first, because it's horrible.
That would work better.
Let's try, let's try a couple of buses. If you
and
don't,
the county has buses that only go to Park City, at set times during the day, and they could expand that, but it's taxing all of us, right? It's part of the
cheaper
sales
than
tax.
the $1 billion that they want for option B.
Right. It's just, when is the state government ever going to have that money? It would have to be done in phases. Remember, they wanted $1 billion for the gondola too, and they still haven't done that, thankfully. and if you remember, there were tens of thousands of people that said no gondola, right? Most of the government officials in the Salt Lake Valley said, no, we don't want that. It's not everything you said. And UDOT picked it anyway. Anyway, they haven't done it because they don't have the billion. So what does that mean for us, right?
So in a perfect world, if money were no option, last question to you, what would be your vision on fixing the issue at hand on the traffic?
Well, because I've been here this long and we've been debating it this long, I was agreeable to the original route. Now with all the growth that we just talked about coming in north of Coyote Lane, we do need Highway 40 to be expanded. No ifs, ands, or buts. If we can make it free flow, that's better for Heber citizens. If we don't do that, then UDOT's going to create total bottlenecks in the 1, 2, 3, 4 access points to get to the free flow that they're talking about. So you can imagine how crowded and crazy it's going to be from traffic light, traffic light, traffic, 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 traffic light to try to either get over right here or here or here. We'll have those 4 big bottlenecks just to try to get to the free flow with the growth that we've approved ourselves.
Not including all the road rage that happens, you know, with the semi-truck drivers, I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Or
because
even...
They'll have 2 roads now to go through.
Yeah.
UDOT told me 4 years ago that the only way they could stop the diesels from coming through Main Street is to take away the pavement strength rating. The pavement's strong enough for diesels. It's built to them. You can't deny them. It's federal regulations. So the only way, if whatever route is built, the only way that Heber City can get back, or I should say ask for Main Street to control it and control the speed limits and control improvements there, is if we get a law from Congress to deed it to the city. I guess we'll see when that happens, right? But there's no way it's going to be supported until a new route is built. And at that point, UDOT will still control both routes, whatever is built, right? They'll still have both routes, control the speed limits, control the lights, control the maintenance also. But we've got a long way to go before Heber City can control Main Street, it seems.
Wow.
Okay. Do we have still time to talk about conservation easements?
Sure.
Okay. I know that the majority of Heber citizens, not to mention the valley, want to preserve the open lands, the open space, our beautiful agriculture, our history, our culture here, why we came here in the first place. And so I was lucky enough to be on the Wasatch Open Lands Board appointed by Heber. I've been the chair on that for the last 5+ years. And we have taken that open space bond of $10 million and leveraged it 6.5 times to be able to save potentially over $66 million of lands, with most of them in the Northfields as well as Midway. Midway's done a great job with their 2 open space bonds. And Heber City is finally asking a citizen survey about, does Heber City want to have an open space bond? And that'll be coming out in the next month or so. Okay. Anyway.
Is that via email? Should people expect it in like the mail?
It's coming through a well-being survey that we also took last year with USU.
Okay.
And so that will be promoted through the city newsletter and the city website, and we'll get it out there, and we're excited to see what people think.
Great.
Because it was traffic and growth was the #1 concern last year. I'm assuming it could be there again this year, right?
Yes.
Okay, so anyway, the largest landowner in the Northfields have been waiting since 2018 to be able to get state and federal matching funds for some of the open space bond leveraging, right, funding match, to be able to preserve their almost 200 acres in the Northfields, and that was Laren Gertsch. So you have to get in line, you have to meet all these qualifications, and then you have to wait for years until federal money or state money opens up. And, you know, I know that we can debate whether or not we think this is a good idea about saving farmland and paying farmers, but what conservation easements do is they get a willing landowner to sell just their development rights. And the development rights are 1 unit per 20 acres. Okay, that's a lot easier to buy that one development right than to try to buy a development right, say downtown, where somebody could put in 30 units, right, or 10 units.
Right.
And then the cost is through the roof. Usually the development right is worth half the price or the valuation of the property. So Laren Gertsch had been waiting for almost 5 years, and we had told UDOT 3 to 4 years ago that his was pending, and yet they'd drawn their line, right, even back then. So his application kept going forward, and we were so excited last year that he was finally going to be able to get the federal fund match and then be able to use some of the open space bond and be able to put that and keep that for his family in perpetuity, because they want to keep farming and ranching there, which is a great legacy for them. Anyway, as soon as it was this close to him being funded, UDOT said, whoa, well, wait a minute, we got a line on a map here. And we said, we've told you this years ago. And his application has gone forward and now it's ready to be funded. And so what UDOT did is they called up the federal government agency, NRCS, and said, we've got a line on a map here and, you know, we don't think you should fund him. And so they backed out after him waiting.
He did, on
all
our
that
interview with
time.
him, he did talk about that.
And it
It's
was
sad.
so sad that we could not support him in something that over 70% of Heber citizens said we want to preserve the open space around us, right? And now, because that has happened, now our work is stopped with being able to get any other funding for the North Fields because of waiting to see what's going to happen with UDOT and this final decision of record. So even though the EIS has been issued, it's still draft, and they'll do their final sometime supposedly this year, maybe this summer. But now that the route is going to be cutting up, you know, acreage, taking away a lot of his acreage as well as others' acreage out there, I'm not sure how we're going to go forward. And that was one of the main purposes that we had wanted to do, was to try to preserve that open space.
Wow.
Frustrating.
Yeah,
Very frustrating.
It's frustrating. I'm sure that you're frustrated. I know that the citizens are frustrated.
Okay.
And out of all the people that spoke, there were only 2 people who, I think one guy voted for option A, and I guess I'd rather have option A than option B. But I mean, none of them, $1 billion. It was like the one guy who came up and said, yep, I'm going to go with option B. It's going to be him, his kids, his kids' kids, his kids' kids. We will never, they will be paying taxes for the rest of their lifetime, let alone his children. And more than likely, his children aren't going to be able to afford to live here either because of all the development. That's
right.
the sad part.
Right, high demand.
Yes.
And the supply is coming, believe me. We'll see if the water comes.
Yeah.
Too. Okay, there was one more thing. Good news. This is good news, and I'll try to make this short. So last night with the elections, thankfully last year, the city council voted to send a letter to UDOT on their concerns with Route B. They didn't say anything about the Northfield, sadly. But on the 1300 South, the Walmart intersection, right, where they want to build that double-decker highway across 189 and all the way from the Walmart intersection clear over to the fields and then up and down to Southfield Road and be in the backyards of all of our neighbors there. Anyway, the city council is asking UDOT to move that further south. And that was something that Yvonne and I had campaigned on, so I was so grateful that the city council saying, hey, UDOT, can you move that further south so that we don't impact those neighbors, we don't impact those businesses, we don't cut off Industrial Parkway and 300 West from having full north-south access, right? Who wants a double-decker highway in your backyard, especially when UDOT's not going to compensate any impacts
Right.
to those people?
Right.
we'll see if that makes any difference, but we'll keep pushing on those issues.
So I'm assuming there's going to be more meetings like there was the other night.
No, they only hold the two meetings, the one public hearing and the one online, where they answered questions, and now they're just taking comments to March 9th. And then supposedly they're going to stick all those comments in the draft EIS at the end and supposedly answer all of our concerns or relook at it again. But, you know, I'm not sure how long they're going to take on all of that.
Right.
And they have not wanted to change anything except for new development at this point. They haven't been concerned so much with the citizen impacts, but they have been very responsive to developer impacts, which is,
of course,
another interesting
right
thing.
Right. So on the final comment that you're going to have, what would you like to tell the citizens of Wasatch on what to do, where to go, how to fight, how to comment? So if you can just please let them know.
Sure. Everyone, we're the ones that have to live with what UDOT decides. And this is our only chance to really speak up. We've had public comments in the past, but this is the final time that you get to give public comment to UDOT on what you like or what you don't like. And please try to be as specific as possible, even if it takes you a few emails to do it, right? Don't be afraid. You send in, well, I remember this now, I'm going to write that in. I remember this now, I'm going to write it in. What you do is you send an email to, I'm almost there, everybody. There we go. Come up. I'll come back here. Send comments. I know I've got it right here. Here we go. Send comments to Heber Valley EIS at utah.gov. All right, we're the ones that will have to live with whatever ends up here. And this is your final chance to really make that difference. Stand up for what you love and what you care about here and what you really think is going to be best for our community, whether it's the Route B or the Route A. You know, I have a lot of reasons and a lot of issues with Route B, and if you're interested in reading about those issues, there are two great websites to go to. My website from last year, voteformayorfranco.com, or the new one of Can't Bypass the Truth. Can't Bypass the Truth. I can't remember if it's a .com or a .org. I think it might be the .org. Yep, can'tbypassthetruth.org, because there's a lot of reasons there of why we love it here, what we want to protect here. And if you agree, let UDOT know. Please, thank you.
So there you have it. And then as a citizen of Wasatch myself, I mean, we all need to stand together because we're better in numbers. And this is the time we can't bury our head in the sand. We have to stand and have our voices heard. If not, then the families suffer and the ranchers suffer. So please, Heidi, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Bring them fields of green and gold, let their laughter echo clear. In a world so tightly wound, where can our children play? Bring them fields of green and gold, let their laughter echo clear. In a world so tightly wound, where can our children